While history typically celebrates the conquest of vast external territories, the most difficult struggle takes place within the human mind, the systematic defeat of internal enemies like anger, greed, and ego. In 599 BCE, the Republic of Vaishali in modern-day Bihar served as the geographic foundation for this story. It was here, in the kingdom of Kundalpur, that a prince named Vardhaman was born into the royal family. Born into a life of absolute powers, Vardhaman was defined from childhood by a specific type of courage. When a deity disguised as a massive, venomous serpent coiled around a tree to test him, the young prince simply played on the snake's back. This displays the fearlessness that earned him the title Mahavir, the great hero. Despite his surroundings, Mahavir lived with a growing internal conflict. He watched the world beyond the palace walls and saw an agonizing cycle of suffering, the physical toll of disease, the inevitable decay of old age, and the finality of death. He concluded that material luxuries were temporary distractions from these universal truths. To find a permanent solution to human misery, he would have to abandon his kingdom and wage an internal war against his own attachments. At age 28, the death of his parents brought him to the brink of renunciation. However, he remained a householder for 2 more years at the request of his grieving elder brother, practicing an ascetic discipline within the palace walls before his final departure. Before leaving, Mahavir performed Varshidan. For a full year, he systematically gave away his royal treasury, distributing gold, gems, and all material property to the poor, effectively dissolving his ties to the state. At age 30, Mahavir formally entered the phase of Diksha. He discarded his royal clothing, plucked out his hair in 5 handfuls, and walked away from civilization as a homeless, naked monk. This act of total renunciation initiated a rigorous spiritual journey, a calculated mission to physically and mentally sever the chains of karma that bind the soul to the cycle of rebirth. Jain philosophy views the soul as pure light, obscured by dark layers of destructive karmas. To dissolve these layers, Mahavir stripped away anger, ego, deceit, and greed. Over 12.5 years of extreme penance, he fasted, wandered barefoot, and maintained total silence. He faced regular hostility from the outside world. People who didn't understand his vows of silence often insulted or physically abused him. Mahavir maintained absolute equanimity, absorbing every strike without a single moment of retaliatory anger. When Indra, the king of the gods, offered protection from these hardships, Mahavir declined. He proved that a Tirthankar must reach the summit of purity through personal effort alone. In this tradition, liberation results from self-reliance and the absolute control of one's own senses. The final phase brought intense trials. A deity named Sangam Dev subjected Mahavir to 20 horrific physical and mental tortures in a single night. Mahavir remained in deep meditation, his mind as stable as a mountain. Even when bitten by the deadly serpent Chankaushik, Mahavir felt only compassion. As the venom entered his body, he radiated forgiveness toward the creature, demonstrating a soul entirely free from the impulse of hatred. After 12 years and 6 months of this relentless internal battle, the 42-year-old monk sat under a sal tree on the banks of the Rujubalika River, reaching the absolute center of his consciousness. Enlightenment occurred at the moment his final karmic bonds dissolved. He attained Keval Gyan, a state of infinite knowledge, perception, and bliss. This moment completed his transition into a Jina, a self-conqueror who now held the status of the 24th Tirthankar, Lord Mahavir. For the next 30 years, Mahavir walked barefoot across the subcontinent. He established the Tirtha, a ford or passage across the ocean of suffering, preaching his path of liberation to kings, laborers, and women in a time of rigid social barriers. He formalized the 5 great vows, placing ahimsa, or nonviolence, and aparigraha, the limit of possessions, as the core requirements for an ethical life. These manuscripts preserve his doctrine of Anikantavada, the principle that reality is multifaceted. This teaching establishes intellectual humility and peaceful dialogue as the logical responses to a complex world. Mahavir's stripped religion of complex rituals and animal sacrifices, making the path to divinity a matter of consistent ethical conduct and the purification of one's own thoughts. In 527 BCE, at age 72, Mahavir delivered his final sermon at Pavapuri, summarizing a lifetime of spiritual discovery for thousands of followers. At this site, his soul finally left the cycle of birth and death, achieving nirvana, a state of permanent, liberated consciousness. That evening, to symbolize the light of knowledge he left behind, people lit thousands of lamps, marking the first celebration of the Jain festival of Diwali. A statue of Lord Mahavir represents a vitarag, an image of absolute stillness and total detachment from all worldly desires. Lord Mahavir's journey proves that divinity is not a birthright, but a status earned through the relentless purification of the self. His life stands as the ultimate testimony to the principle, live and let live.